Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial on how to paint a black Chihuahua. This is an elderly black Chihuahua, black, and he has a lot of gray on him, a lot of gray around his muzzle. There's some fun little details in this painting. And he's sitting out in this wild lawn with a tennis ball ready to play. So I'll be showing you the details of the lawn as well as the dog in this tutorial. I hope you'll join me and paint along with me. If you are interested in that, I will have all the colors I'm using and the brushes I'm using in the description below. I hope you like the tutorial. If you do, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell for future notifications. I have some very interesting tutorials coming up soon, and please in the comments below let me know if there's something in particular that you would like me to paint. But just let me know. I really appreciate your supporting my channel. And I hope you enjoy this tutorial. Let's get painting. So let's get ready to paint this adorable little black Chihuahua. Here I'm just doing the underpainting for the lawn, and all I'm using is Deep Green by Artist Loft. And I'm leaving it a little thicker in areas and lighter in areas, so there's a little differentiation in the tones. So just completely fill that in here. And then we get busy doing the underpainting for the Chihuahua himself. And here I am using Mars Black and a little Thalo Blue for the dark values that I see when I'm looking at the photograph. And now I'm just adding to that mix some titanium white, and I'm coloring in, painting in all of the lighter values that I see as I look at the photograph. Oftentimes when I'm painting black fur, I use an underpainting of burnt umber and raw sienna, but this dog doesn't have any brown tones at all in his fur except around the ears and a little around the eyes. So I went ahead and just used this for the underpainting, and there's going to be some Mars Black and more white and gray areas added, of course, when I add the texture to the fur and all that. And here I'm just putting some details in the ears and bringing those dark values in where I see little creases, and you know how the bone structure in the ears pops out and it's a little darker. So here in the eyes, I'm just using that original dark color, but with a little bit more Mars Black, and just for the underpainting of the eye. And also here for the nostrils of the nose, and then just going around the shape of the nose with that dark color. Then with that medium gray color, so a bluish gray color, I add the titanium white and I fill in all around the nostrils, and then I also go around the nose with that color too, to fill in all the white spaces. So now I'm just using the dark color again, just to kind of add a little bit more of a shadow to makes the nose bend a bit, and then going up into the hairline up towards the forehead of this cute little Chihuahua. Oh, if you could just hear my granddaughter and how she says Chihuahua. It's the cutest thing. She says Chihuahua, Chihuahua. So funny. So now I'm just adding to the circumference of the eye with that same dark color and just kind of bring in some other values that I see that needed to be darkened a little bit more. Going around the area now with raw umber and titanium, no, raw umber and platinum blended together just to make like a light tan color. And then I add just a little bit more of the raw umber to put these dark values in here in the ears. And then a little bit later, I add some pink. I just kind of glaze a little pink over that for the inner part of that ear. But right now I'm just kind of getting those darker values in there. And later I put, of course, a lot more details into it, but more basically just getting the underpainting on. And right around the eyes, you see I added a little bit of that tan color as well. Those are the only areas on this dog that I saw any brown undertones. So now we're going to put in that little tongue, and what I used here is cadmium red, a little titanium white, and a little bit of crimson red, and I just put in the little tiny little tongue that's sticking out. In the photograph, he didn't have a tongue hanging out of his mouth, just that little tiny bit of the tongue sticking out. It's pretty funny, really. Okay, looks cute. So working on the eyes a little bit, I took a tiny bit of titanium white and the raw umber, and I just took that around the edges of the eye, just to put a little bit of reflection there. Not the complete reflection, there'll be a lot more added to that. And now I'm taking the dark value that I started with and just a tiny bit more Mars black, and I'm putting some more definition around the face, so you can see the difference between the face and the little hair, fluffy hair on the sides of the neck, and then taking it down the sides of this body where it's a little bit darker fur. The light value is actually more coming from the left hand facing side. Here I'm just putting the ball in, the tennis ball in, and I'm just using titanium white to put that background in. And then I add a little bit of cad yellow and just paint that all in and add a little bit of raw umber into that and shadow down on the bottom, and then sort of stipple around after I get that in, just stipple around with the cad yellow and the raw umber to kind of give that texture to tennis ball has. And here I just took some titanium white to make that little swirly line that the tennis ball has. So for the details in the grass, I took some hooker's green and cad yellow and a little bit of titanium white, and I basically just painted these little sprigs of grass all over that backdrop that I had on there, that underpainting that I had in there. And now I'm just getting back to the dog, and I am taking now the Mars black, and I'm just kind of going with some in the direction of the fur. I'm just putting a lot of details and highlights in areas. As you can see, that ear just kind of popped when I did that, and went around the edges with that and bringing hairs up into the ear, and then in the direction of the fur, putting this darker color right there on the forehead. You see how it just turns the forehead, so you can see that there's an area on the top that's bumped out a bit more. And now I'm just bringing some definition in here, and I'm using the Mars black with a tiny little bit of the blue, but mostly Mars black at this point, going around the eyes to make them stand out a bit more. You know, the Chihuahuas have those cute little bug eyes. So I'm going to work on the eyes a little bit more, and I just took some Mars Black and went around the upper part of the eyes, kind of have that shadow where the eyes go over, even though there's not a lot of shadow there because Chihuahua's eyes, you know, bump out. So, but I put a little so that the eyes stood out a bit more. And here I'm working on the nose, just putting some details in there. And I'm using a liner brush for that. So here I've taken the raw umber and Mars Black, and I'm just going around. See, I actually went over that reflection that I put in before, and I didn't quite like it. So anyway, I'm taking that and I'm just making the circumference of the eye a little bit larger. And that's a very dark brown, if you want to call it that. And I did make it a little bit darker with the Mars Black in the middle area for the pupil. Now here I've taken titanium white and a little phthalo blue for the reflections that I see. And I like to add a little bit of blue to the white because he is outside. So he would be, you know, getting a little reflection from the sky. And I just put a lot of little reflective light areas in the eyes. And you'll see after I get them done, it looks really cute. Now for this part I added a little bit more blue, and I kind of grayed it out a little bit more because I just wanted to put a tiny bit of a lighter color there to give that eye a little more depth. I don't know if it's showing up real well on the camera, but so I'm adding blue to that centerpiece and kind of around the bottom of the eye. And then I do bring in some more reflective areas on the eye. You see, and it looks really strange right now, but after I get done, you'll see what I'm doing and how cute it looks. And just kind of imagine that they're looking at something, maybe the flash of the camera or the sunlight, and you can see all these different reflections in their eyes. Once I get that left-hand facing eye done with the reflections, then it balances out the look of the right-hand facing eye that I just did. Now I'm back to using the white with that little bit of phthalo blue on these reflective areas. And some right there in the corner of the eye. See, I think the eyes are looking very much alive all of a sudden. So I've taken that that lighter color and just kind of blending it around into the black around the edges of that eye. So there is more light on that side of the eye. So I lightened that up a little bit. So I did slow down the camera, of course, while I'm doing the eyes so that you can see a little bit better the details of putting in all of these reflections in the eyes and all that, and what a difference it makes. I try to slow down on the important parts. If I didn't fast forward through some of these, this would have been another very long tutorial. Maybe eventually, as my channel grows, and I maybe acquire some Patreon customers, I guess you'd call them, or viewers, I could make full-length tutorials if that's something that everyone would be interested in. But while I don't have anyone asking for that, I'm just sort of speeding up the parts that I feel that you'd be able to grasp, seeing it in fast motion like that, and then slowing down on these details. I hope that makes sense. So now I'm taking a little titanium white and a little tiny bit of phthalo blue. And I'm just kind of going around the edges because this little guy has a very white muzzle. So I'm just pulling those in the direction of the fur that it would go, and bringing that around the nose and the mouth area. He looks funny right now. With that going on, he looks like a little monkey right now. But he does have a very gray, a little muzzle, a lot of gray around the muzzle, I should say. So I went down and picked up a little bit of Mars Black and added it into that mix. And then here I'm going around different areas of the eyes, and that very light area around that right hand facing eye, I'm just adding some fine little hairs in the darker color. And then I come back in with more titanium white and bring in some little gray furs, creating a nice light gray and bringing in some gray furs. And then I'm bringing some of those colors down into the body as well. And I like this Philip Grainier brush because it's so thin when you hold it on the point. You can use a Philip Grainier brush, which is wonderful for creating furs if you just want to use it with a straight on brush stroke. But I like it up on its tip like this to create these little furs that I have sticking up here on the ears. And then like on the top of the head, I add furs going with just the tip of the brush. I just really like it. I think I use the Philip Grainier brush more for that than for the original purpose of the brush. And then here I'm just adding some fine little furs with the darker combination there on the side of his body. And now I've gone in and taken up the white, like I said, like a light gray, and I'm adding some just little hairs all around the forehead and the eyes. This is an older dog, like I said, and he had a lot of gray hair on his face. So if you noticed, I've been twisting that Philip Grainier brush around in different directions. Like here I'm using the tip again to bring in some fine little gray furs, little hairs coming up around the ears, and then taking it along the top of the ears to where the light would be hitting it, and where the ear bends at the very top of the ear. You know, they have these big ears, don't they? They're so cute. So I'm taking the color there of titanium white with a little phthalo blue And I'm just doing some highlights in the ear, so that just kind of touching the top of the creases of the ear so that the creases stand out. It's those little bones inside the ear, I guess it's cartilage really, in the ear that bend and kind of go with the bend of the ears and the shape of the ears. So if you add a little tiny bit of light on top of those bends, it helps them to pop out, and you can actually see where the ear has got those little creases and bends. And here I'm putting some highlights on the top of this ear where it bends up there on the top, and then like I said, on those little creases where things are sticking out, and you have to highlight the tops. Okay, bringing it around the eyes a little bit, and now I just took a little bit of titanium white and the cad red, I'm sorry, and just brought that tongue some detail. I put a little extra white there in that little spot just to kind of highlight it, and then here I added a little bit of black to kind of darken that up for under the lip. So now we're adding some more little fine gray hairs. So now at this point you're going to see me adding lots of little fine hairs throughout the painting. And I'll be doing, lights and darks just as I see where they're needed. And here around the nose, little darker area so that nose stands out a little bit more. It's a cute little nose. I like the little tongue, it's so funny. So here he has all these little fluffy hairs coming off the side of his neck. And so I'm just kind of accenting those a little bit with the darker, and then later I bring in a little bit of white to kind of help them to stand out. And bring in a little dark around the mouth. So this painting was really done with a very limited palette. The colors being, when I'm pulling in this medium gray color it's just basically the same combination or the same colors, but just in different combinations. Like this medium gray is, you know, Mars black, phthalo blue, and titanium white. And I just keep it at a medium gray, and then when I want to lighten it up, I just add a little more of the titanium white. And then the white around the nose is a lot more of the titanium white. And basically that's the color palette that I used on this dog, except for the raw umber and a little bit of the parchment in the ears and around the eyes, and then in the actual ball of the eye, and then the tongue. But so a very limited palette. It's interesting that you can paint a whole entire painting with such a limited palette. I hope you're enjoying this tutorial. If you are enjoying it, please like and subscribe. I appreciate it. Give me a thumbs up. So here I'm using the lighter gray, and I'm putting that little area on the top of his head that had a lot of sun hitting it, and kind of helps it to stand out there, like showing the turns of the forehead. It looks funny right now, but it'll come together later after I add some darker tones in there too. So here I'm just adding a little bit more of the highlight color going around the ears, a little bit more definition. And where I'm looking at the photograph, and I see where areas have a little bit more gray, then I add that in, and then see I'm putting a little shadow there underneath where the ear turned in that crease, so that also helps for that crease to stand out a little bit more. Okay, and now I'm just adding a little highlight on the top of the nose and down the sides of the nose and just under the nostrils. He's coming together here. And I'm just using a very fine detail brush here for these details around the nose and the eyes and some of those little fine hairs around the mouth. So here I'm just tweaking the little details of the eyes and making sure that they look rounded. You know how the Chihuahua's eyes are very round and pop out a little bit. So you have to get the sides a bit darker and then have that lighter color with those reflections accented just right to make it actually look round. Does that make sense? And then I'm just adding some details in the little beard and mustache area. So I had gone around that white muzzle area with some dark little hairs that were in and about there, and now I'm just highlighting with a bit more of the titanium white mixture to just kind of highlight those hairs as they're standing out a bit more on the muzzle and then down on the chest area. And here again, I'm just kind of continuing with the details of the nose. I don't know if you've ever not noticed this. It helps when you're drawing or painting a nose. The nostrils look almost like a sideways 6, if you notice. And so once you have that little nostril in there, then you're going to put these little highlights that just kind of look like the light is kind of bouncing off of it, or the nose is wet in different areas. And here I'm lightening up the muzzle a bit more again. This is the part of the painting where you just kind of tweak things and you're adding details here and there and just looking at the photograph, and if you see it needs a little bit more light or a little bit more dark value, then just add that in and just keep tweaking it. So now I'm going around the eyes and adding some light and some dark where I feel it's needed. And when I go into the eyeball area, I'm putting those little lights like I described, phthalo blue and white mixed together. And then in the corner of the eye and here on the nose, just tweaking all those little details. So I'm going to add a little shadow, a little darker shadow area underneath the tongue, so it stands out a little bit more. And then I'll just kind of play around with the little hairs around the mouth. Get that little beard on there just right. By the way, this dog's name is Wiggles. Isn't that the perfect little name for a Chihuahua? So now kind of going over that dark area with the light gray and bringing in some tiny little hairs around the mouth area. And the bottom part of the nose where it kind of comes down and meets the mouth, there's always like a little line there that meets up from the top of the mouth to the nose, and it kind of is a bit of a triangle up above that line. And just going around and adding some more details around the eyes, little fine hairs. in here on the body, kind of accenting that, those bits of fur, just brightening up them a little bit where there were a lot of bright white areas, or bright gray really. And then just kind of adding individual little white furs. It's like on his body he would just have these random little white furs, or little white hairs, real short hair every once in a while. And then here highlighting those little hairs that stick out on the sides of his neck. So now I'm taking the colors and just sort of blending the ears, bringing in some dark hairs. Here's some light hairs here, and just little bits of highlights at the tops and the creases of the ears, and then blending the colors together just with a very dry brush. And then putting a little bit more into the fur in the body, just some dark areas where I needed to darken up some of the turns in his fur. So here I'm just adding some bits of light, sunlight hitting the top of his head and on the top of his ear and all that. So at this point of the painting, just keep looking at your reference photo and tweaking all the different areas to see if you've got all the lights and darks in the right places. Blending the ears and just kind of putting back, like if it got a little too light, just add back a little bit of the darker combination of color. So I hope you're enjoying this tutorial and you've learned something that might help you if you have a elderly black and gray, or let's say a little black Chihuahua that is graying with age. I hope you've learned something that will help you, and you found that this enjoyable. Please let me know, leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you, and let me know what you thought about this, and if you have any questions, and what you'd like to see me painted in the future. Like and subscribe and hit the bell for upcoming notifications. So here I'm just putting a little bit more of the texture on that tennis ball, just brightening it up a little bit because that's the side that the light source is on. And then I'm going to take the Thalo green, hooker's green, cad yellow, and I've made a couple of different combinations on my palette. And I'm just going to bring in some more of those grasses. I also add some titanium white to the grasses to help them to stand out now that we had all those other darker grasses in the background. So just go randomly, make sure that you're random about it, that you're not going too much in one direction or the other, and just kind of go and freely put in those little sprigs here and there, all different directions, some turned, some bent, some going one direction and the other, just like they were stepped on by somebody or by this puppy. And keep adding the sprigs in there. Add a little bit of brown here and there, and put the brown in with the green, and just add some sprigs with brown and green mixed together. Kind of just load your brush like double loaded, and that makes the grasses look very natural. So here's the little Chihuahua. I hope you love him, and I hope if you've painted along with me that you're really happy with the Chihuahua that you painted. So I look forward to seeing you in my next tutorial, and happy painting everyone. Take care and see you soon. Bye bye.